books and cats and books and cats. My name is Shanae and I'm in a reading slump, and this is my attempt to get myself out of it, starting with reading A Court of Thorns and Roses. The first time I read this book was in 2022. I read it from February 21st to March 16th, so almost an entire month to read it. My second time reading it, I started March 13th of this year, and I just finished it today that I'm filming, which is March 25th. So about 2 weeks, so a little bit shorter. What I remember about the first time, I feel like I remember like main plot points, but not a lot of small details. But I do remember in my brain, it's like in quarters. Yeah. So it was really slow the first quarter. The second quarter, it kind of got a little more interesting. The third quarter, it slowed back down because that's when Feyre goes back home, and I'm more interested in what's happening in Prythian. And then the last quarter flew by. The first time I read it, I gave it 5 stars, but I almost feel like it was just at a time with like BookTube where this was something that was really popular, and I was just like, I love it too, let me give it 5 stars. This time around, I still really enjoyed it, but I think if I'm being more honest with myself, it's more of a 4. That's not necessarily a bad thing. For me, a 4 is still good. A 5 is just like one of my best books of all time. And I'm pretty sure I've rated every single one of Sarah J. Maas's books a 5 star, so we'll see how this goes as I continue reading. I have some thoughts on some things. And I just wanted to say, and I'm pretty sure I made it obvious on the title at least, that this is going to be a spoiler video on this book. So if you've not read it and you want to and you don't want to be spoiled, thank you for clicking on my video, but maybe don't continue, maybe come back to it after you've read it. So starting with, I kind of give a brief synopsis in the video where I talked about being in a reading slump, where you start with Feyre, who is the youngest of 3 daughters. The mom has passed away and their family has lost their fortune, and Feyre is taking care of the family. Yes, as the youngest of 3 children, and the father is still around. She is the one that is hunting for the family, making money for the family, and they're living in this like rundown cottage in the forest. And one day, Feyre is hunting to feed the family. She finds a deer, and before she shoots it with her bow and arrow, she sees a wolf, and she decides to shoot it as well. And she has a feeling that it might be a fairy, so she uses an ash arrow that she has, and then actually kills it and kills the deer. She skins the wolf and sells it for money, and then feeds the family with the deer. And then shortly after, a beast comes to take her because she killed a fairy unprovoked, and there's this treaty between the fairies and the humans where if a human kills a fairy unprovoked, it's essentially a life for a life. But instead of killing Feyre, this beast says, you're coming to Prythian and you need to live out the rest of your life there. So that's kind of like the starting point. But then you learn that this beast is actually named Tamlin. He is the High Lord of the Spring Court, and he tells Feyre she doesn't have to stay here. She can leave if she wants. She just has to stay in Prythian. So my first kind of thought that I wrote down about this point is, why doesn't Tamlin tell Feyre what he's actually done for her family? Because she's just constantly thinking about how she can get out of this treaty, how she can escape, because she cares for her family and because she made a promise to her mother that she would take care of her family. And all that Tamlin will tell her is that they are fed and comfortable. They're definitely more than that. And I feel like it would have helped his case more if he would have just told her or shown her. And my idea, actually, since this is like a Beauty and the Beast retelling, there's a point in that movie where there's this enchanted mirror that Belle can use to see her father. So there could have been some kind of relation there, some way for Tamlin to show Feyre, look at your family, they're being cared for. I don't know, maybe that's just me. My next thought, as I'm rereading Feyre and thinking about the way that she's reacting to the world around her, I understand that she's desperate. She wants to get back to her family. She's hoping that they'll come and save her. But it took about 2 days for her to get from her cottage to Prythian on horseback. But she really thinks that her father limped with his cane all the way there to save her. Like, I feel like she just fell for the Puka's tricks way too easily. She was kind of thinking like, oh, maybe like his horses, or like he brought horses and they're out in the forest, or like something like that. But also, like, it still got to the point where they were further away and she still thought that was her father. Like, don't you think if he did come to save you, maybe he would embrace you before you go instead of like continuing to beckon you? I don't know. Again, I know she was desperate, so whatever. Also, it is funny the second time around because it's a big reveal that everything is glamored and there's actually fairies bustling around everywhere in the Spring Court. It's not just like Feyre, Tamlin, Lucien, and Alice. Like, that's all you get introduced to. But there's actually fairies and high fae everywhere. But they're just glamored so that Feyre doesn't freak out. But they're just there the whole time. They're watching her embarrass herself. They're watching her like walk around the manor to try to map out the land. They're watching her go follow who she thinks is her father, and they're probably laughing at her. And I think it was probably casual, like, ugh, there's Feyre going off and doing something dumb, go call Tamlin. And that's probably why Tamlin got there so quickly and was able to save her. Another thing I was thinking about, I know from pretty much from book 2 onward, we hate Tamlin and we love Rhysand. I remember that, especially like if you've read book 2. I might go into some detail on the series or other books in the other series, but I don't want to like take up what I would be talking about in those videos. But you know, like Tamlin in book 2, yeah. Anyways, however, I do feel like in this book, at least to Tamlin, he's doing the best that he can do. He's trying to protect Feyre, and maybe he's definitely overprotective, but he's looking out for her and trying to keep her safe. He's putting her first before himself when he sends her home when there's literally 3 days left to break the curse. I mean, and then Rhysand's actions toward her in this book, like, he's really got to redeem himself. Like, I'm thinking when she broke her arm later on in towards the end of the book, he's trying to convince her to let him heal her, but he does that by grabbing her bone that's sticking out of her arm and putting her in excruciating pain. And then he insults her even if there's not people around to hear. So it's not just that he's trying to put up this front that he's actually with Amarantha, then he's not trying to protect Feyre. It's like he's actually mean to her too. And then also, again, I know he's technically trying to help her, but getting her drunk on fairy wine and making her dance in front of everyone, he's embarrassing her. Now all these, even though she doesn't have memories of that, all these fairies have memories of her doing that. So that would embarrass me. I would think about that every time I'm around them. Okay, so I know I haven't gotten into a lot of detail. So essentially, the treaty between the fairies and the humans, we know, was actually a lie, because there was a curse put on Tamlin because Amarantha loves Tamlin and Tamlin rejects her, and there's a lot of other details of it, but it's Amarantha that is the blight that's on the land. It's her fault that everyone in the spring court has masks. And so I talked about how Tamlin sends Feyre home, and she sees her family, and she sees that they're very well off. They're living in this beautiful manner. They're wearing nice clothes. They're participating in social activities, which also, like, how terrible is it of these humans in this town that are like, oh, you're rich now? Okay, now we can be friends, but before I ignored you and refused to help you in any way. But another thing I'm realizing reading this book is I love Nesta. I love her so much. She is the only person that cares about Feyre and her family. She is the only one who went looking for her. She's the only one that kept anything to remember her. So I'm not sure, again, because of the hype of it and because of like what other people were saying, I was just like, oh yeah, I hate Nesta too, or was I just not thinking about it very deeply? Or do I just have a different perspective of her now because I've read the entire series? Or is it because I'm an older sister? I don't know. But I wrote about some things that I loved that she did. So I mentioned how she's the only one that went to go look for Feyre, and then she lied to Elaine and their father, saying, oh, I went to go visit her while she was taking care of our dying aunt, and my carriage broke down, so I just had to come back. But actually it was just that she couldn't find a way across the wall into Prythian. And then I remember Feyre multiple times thinking about the flowers that she had painted on their table and thinking, oh, Nesta probably scraped it off. She's so happy I'm gone, whatever. But Nesta kept a piece of the table with the painting that Feyre painted on it. And I just, like, I feel like that's so sentimental. Like, she was keeping that to remember Feyre. And then I just think it's so cool of her that she is so strong-willed that she remembered everything from the beginning. Like, the glamour couldn't work on her. She had an iron will, and I love that. They described it as it was made of iron and ashwood and, you know, all the things that either can defeat fairies or is rumored to defeat fairies. That's what her mind is made of. And then she just mentions that she hated Feyre because she was the only one strong enough to take care of the family. And then she hated their father because he never did anything to take care of them. And Feyre even remarked, well, you had no issue spending all the gold that I made. And then Nesta said, well, I knew you could make more. And part of me hoped that if you couldn't, that our father would do something about it. But he never did. So moving on to when Feyre is going back to Prythian because she decides she needs to go save Tamlin. She realizes there has to be something wrong or something that she can do. So she's heading back, and there was just the way that the entrance to Prythian was described to me just made me think of the other series, the Crescent City series and Throne of Glass. So I wrote it down. So it's described as mossy stones placed across from each other, a faint whorl carved into them both, a gate. So I couldn't help but think of word stones, a word gate. I just feel like, is it not necessarily just a gate from the mortal realm to Prythian, but maybe like a portal? Like if you were to literally just walk across, maybe you wouldn't be where you are, but walking through this gate, you're actually in this different world. And then at this point, when she comes back, no one's there except for Alice. For some reason, she's the only person in the entire spring court that's there, and she's going to like gather supplies for her like adopted sons, her nephews. And so she tells Feyre everything about what the curse actually is, how it happened, and why they all wear masks, why there's this blight that's actually Amarantha. And again, it's just showing like how similar this story is to Beauty and the Beast, because the way that the curse has to be broken is him falling in love, but it's very specific terms. So I'll try not to word vomit too much, but it's essentially, so Amarantha has this history with humans because her sister was in love with a human, and this human betrayed her. And so that's some backstory. He betrayed her and brutally murdered her. And then later on, so Lucian said to her that she needs to crawl back into the hole that she came from, whatever, and she scooped out his eye with her nail and gave him the scars that are on his face. And then she, like I said before, she loves Tamlin, so to try to convince him to be with her, she says, well, I'm throwing this ball for the spring court, and it's an apology to Lucian and what I did to him. I want everyone in the spring court to come, and it's to be a masquerade. And so that's why everyone is wearing masks. And Amarantha, again, tries to get Tamlin to be with her. And it's Tamlin who then makes the comment, he says that he doesn't want to be with her. And then he makes a comment of, I would rather be with a human. I would rather marry a human than you. And so Amarantha, having that history with her sister and the human, decided to curse them. And so she says, well, I'm feeling generous, so this is the curse that she puts on him. She makes him to where he has to find a human woman with a heart of ice, meaning that she's willing to kill a fairy unprovoked, fall in love with him, and say that she loves him. And then, so before Tamlin sends Feyre back to the mortal world, they spent a lot of time together, and he told her he loves her multiple times, including as she's getting into the carriage, and she didn't say it back. Literally, if she just would have said it back, it would have broken the curse. And so since she stayed at home, the time passed for the curse, and now it's too late. So after Alice explains to Feyre what this whole curse is, then Feyre has to convince Alice, but she brings her to under the mountain where Amarantha is keeping everyone now. And she warns Feyre not to trust her senses, not to make deals with fairies, and not to drink fairy wine. And of course, she does all of those things. First thing she does is make a deal with Amarantha. Does she really have a choice though? Probably not, because she's captured by the adder and then brought to her throne. So the deal that she makes with Amarantha is she can do one of two things. One, she can complete 3 trials, and if she completes all 3 of them, then Amarantha will free Tamlin and the spring court. Or she can solve this riddle and she will free them immediately. The key word here being immediately when we're talking about the riddle. And Feyre thinks about this later and kind of tries to push it to the back of her mind, but making a deal with fairies, you have to be very specific. And so obviously Amarantha made it very clear, well, if you complete these 3 trials, I will free Tamlin in the spring court, but you never said when. But if you solve this riddle, it'll happen immediately, against my will even. And then I also think it's interesting that the 3 trials are based off of what Amarantha knows about Feyre. The first one, she has to defeat the Middengard, or she has to hunt the Middengard worm. And obviously that's because Amarantha knows that Feyre hunted and killed Andrus, the wolf, in the beginning. The second riddle is one I have questions about because she has a riddle. Did I say the second riddle? The second trial. That is a riddle, the second riddle. But there's a riddle written on the wall And her and Lucian are like in this pit, and there's these hot iron spikes coming down, and she has to read this riddle and select the right lever that is the answer to the riddle. We never know what this riddle actually is. So number one, who told Amarantha that Feyre can't read? Or number two, is it that she didn't know that, and was it actually a really hard riddle? Or was it very easy, and so was it then made obvious when Rhysand had to help her? Or would Rhysand have had to help her either way because it was a hard riddle? I don't know. And then the third one, she had to kill 3 innocent fairies, again, obviously because she killed Andras unprovoked. That makes sense. He's so cute. And then in between these, we see a little bit more about how Rhysand is helping Feyre. So he plays music for her in her cell, which brings her out of a dark place. He covers for Tamlin and Feyre when they're like making out in that corridor, and Tamlin like touches all her paint, and it's obvious that he's been touching her, and Amarantha loves him, so it's gonna be like a huge deal. He magically removes all the paint from Tamlin and then starts kissing her right before Amarantha walks in, and now the paint is magically on Rhysand, even though he's not the one that touched her. So, and then also just the fact that Feyre had this paint on her every night just to show her that she's not being taken advantage of, because all of the paint would be smudged. And then also just speaking in her mind while she's doing the trials. Then obviously we get to the end, and Feyre has completed all 3 trials, and Amarantha says, well, you didn't tell me when, so I'll free them eventually, but I'm gonna kill you now. And so she starts torturing Feyre and like breaking her bones, and Rhysand is trying to save her. Tamlin was one of the 3 fairies that Feyre had to kill, but he had a heart of stone, so she just got to stab him in the chest and he was fine, but he had to slowly heal from it. But he was stabbed with an ash dagger, so it's healing very slowly, so he's not able to help very much. And then, oh, that's something I forgot to mention. So when she is doing the 3rd trial, she has this magical ability where she's able to just remember the exact perfect detail at the exact perfect moment, because she remembers that another thing Alice told her to do was to listen. And so she remembers all these conversations that have happened over essentially the past year of Tamlin and Lucian leaving the door open, or having these private conversations where Feyre can overhear, where it's mentioned that Tamlin has a heart of stone, and that's mentioned multiple times. So that's how Feyre knows, well, I can stab Tamlin and he's not going to die because he has a heart of stone. That's part of the curse. And then, of course, that happens again when Amarantha is torturing her, and she conveniently starts thinking through the riddle that was given to her and realizes that the answer is love. And Amarantha snaps her neck, and then, Tamlin kills her and rips out her throat because she killed Feyre. And then it ends happily because all the High Lords give her some magic, and then she turns into High Fae, and they walk off into the sunset, into the spring court. So all sunshine and rainbows at the end of this book. So definitely some things that were a little annoying or ridiculous this time around, just thinking about it as like a storytelling perspective and not necessarily just like, am I enjoying this book, I guess, or am I enjoying it because other people are enjoying it? Again, I did still enjoy it. I gave it 5 stars the first time and then 4 stars this time, but I'm curious to see how this continues. My favorite in this series is definitely the next book, book 2, A Court of Mist and Fury. So we'll see. Do I still give it 5 stars? That'll be coming up next. But Speaking of coming up next, I have this amazing idea. So I like to rant about the books that I'm reading to my husband. And so we came up with this idea together that, based off of me ranting to him about what's going on in this book, he is going to give you a husband recap, and that should be coming next week. So look forward to that. And if you want to see me reread more books, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel. And also, if you want to see a list of books that I'm planning on rereading over the next year to 2 years, I'll link that as well. Thank you so much for watching.